So this particular random review came as a result of a conversation I had over at WTF at TFW, the Transformer podcast of TFW 2005. Go look it up on iTunes or visit the forum there to comment on episodes, etc., etc. Cheap plug, cheap plug. The point was, the discussion was about the toys that came out in classics, and while most collectors swear to them, and there's whole third-party industries on toys that are classic style, they really have not aged as well. The articulation doesn't stand up, some of the engineering's a little bit behind, but the one agreement we had was this mold. This being the Classics Mirage mold, which we are reviewing as Movie Fracture. Because I always tend to pick repaints over the toys that I'm actually thinking of reviewing, just to keep things a little bit more interesting. Now, we're going to start with a few things that should have been. This should have been Crasher. Hasbro tried to get the name, could not. So, Fracture, good name, about as close as they could come. This should have been released in the Universe toy line, and should have been an extension of the Classics toy line. But everyone, including Walmart, where this was released, wanted more movie-branded toys, so it became a movie character. And it should have been the original Crasher. That was the intention. Not some homage, the real deal. So we will respect it as a Classics Crasher, but we'll refer to it as Fracture for the sake of historical accuracy. As you can see, F1 car. I really like these kinds of vehicles because they come about so rarely, and I say that knowing that Drag Strip just came out in Combiner Wars, and we're getting a Mirage as well. But I really like this. This is like a really cool style of car to make a Transformer out of, and you just don't see them nearly as much anymore. Really, like I would so go for these over, so many different sports cars that come out with. The paint job on this thing is pretty lavish. You see a Decepticon symbol there, and it is the movie-style Decepticon symbol. It's painted in silver, and it's, it's a little bit faded. Actually, now that I look at it in the light, no, that's normal G1 Decepticon symbol. Okay, good on you, designers. You found a way of actually making it classic style. Good. The one, as well as here on the side, a lot of this is paint. Like, all the plastic is molded either black or slightly off-white. So everything else here is painted. All of the red is painted on. And they did such a good job getting all the lines down, getting everything to match up correctly. It looks outstanding. And apparently this is based on like a real F1 car they had to go out and find to make this homage actually happen. And I'm glad they did, because, man, it looks so good, and it really does invoke Crasher really well, even though it's not the same type of car. A lot of other details I like. For starters, this is back when you could actually get paint on the rims of the wheels, so that's nice. So it actually looks good all the way around. There's a few molding details I like, too. For instance, we have the exhausts in the back, as well as a translucent front where you can kind of see her head, just kind of barely poking out. Yeah, not quite like I'm driving myself gimmick, but the effort is there. And it keeps nice details too. Like, I like how nothing got cheaped out of the suspension in the front. Everything is like gapped in and kind of pretending like the machinery's really there. So that's all good. Really, really like this vehicle. And rolls pretty good. Because that's pretty much all the toy can do in this mode, is roll. But it rolls well. I also like the spoiler on the back. There's a ball joint that's cut in the front, as well as a hinge, so you can position it in multiple ways, however you like to have it up. Like, you can have it a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I like to have it like about there, which seems to be the most aerodynamic positioning. Your choice. So all around, really cool vehicle mode. They really outdid themselves trying to get that homage as close as they could, considering it's not the same vehicle. Let's go ahead and see how the homage works in robot mode. And we will start by removing this piece from the front. And here's where everything gets fun, because this toy had a really good transformation scheme. Like, one thing I really liked about this toy, it's very intuitive, very well engineered. The legs fold out as such. We will split them here in the back and fold up the spoiler, which is going to be our feet. Now, from here, we will disengage these from the pelvis section, rotate them out, and that lets us hinge out the shoulders, fold the arms all the way down, and we will flip these out. This is why I always try to have thumbnails on hand when I'm transforming a toy on camera. Thumbnails on hand, which is, where else would you find thumbnails? On my heel. Let's see, next up, there's a lot of interesting folding going on here in the front section. So that comes down. We will, that goes back. Here. Fold that torso down, and then the centerpiece, all folded up nicely. We'll rotate that around, get our arms into position as such. And there, we have Fracture in her robot mode, which of course is originally G1 Mirage based, but I gotta admit, they did a pretty good job of trying to get that Crasher homage in there. Now, the first thing you will notice, of course, the Crasher you probably knows from the GOBOT's cartoon, who's largely black in color. Well, the original Crasher's toy was offered in white and black, so this kind of splits the difference between the two and creates a more dynamic look than the original design would have had if they'd stuck to just the cartoon model. I think that's a really, really good way of doing it. So, all good for me. We'll take a close look at the head, because this is where it kind of impressed me the most. Because it actually does look like Crasher. Like, they even tried to get that domino mask look around the eyes, trying to make that homage as strong as possible. I like the red around the sides and the vents of the helmet, and the pink face, of course, to get that homage as strong as possible. She looks really good, and it's very surprising because it's a very Mirage head. Like, it's hard to mistake it as anyone else, unless it's this paint job, in which it's pretty easy to mistake it for a GOBOT. But as you can see, it's also a mold that works really well gender swapped. It's very thin in the middle, and it's got all the details to where you could see it as a female character. Like, there's nothing really like getting in the way left over from Mirage. It's a very, very smartly chosen mold, and if they had that thought from the beginning, which I don't think they did. I don't think they did, because it seems like this came later. But either way, it's an inspired use of the mold, because it works all the way around. Now, talking about how these molds have held up over the years, Mirage is definitely the one that holds up the best. You have a ball-jointed neck, which has a hinge on the bottom too, so you get a little bit more than you would normally expect. Full ball-jointed shoulders, as well as a double elbow, which I love double elbows. Lots of range in those. Full working waist. You have great hip articulation with ball joints and little flaps in the panels so those don't get in the way. The knees technically the knees are 90 degrees, but you do have the hinge back there, and you can get away with some deeper knee poses if you so choose. And we do have a foot tilt in every direction thanks to the ball joint and hinge for dynamic poses. So Crasher or Fracture or whatever you want to call her does outstanding on articulation. She has so much to go through, so many joints, and looks so good in her poses. Really exceptional job. Like, the engineering on this toy is just absolutely top. Like, this holds up to a lot of the stuff they make today. Scratch that. This holds up to a lot of the stuff they made before the budget started going down. Like, this toy just, this toy is like still cream of the crop, one of the single best out there. Now, you'll notice at this point, I normally demonstrate gimmicks, what springs out and flips up, what lights come on, or what part of her is going to fire the missile, and I'm going to come up with some really weird explanation as to why missiles vanish when you're not paying attention to where they're fired from. That's pretty much what you get. Like, Classics toys were all about the original Transformers, right down to there really is no gimmick. The toy speaks for itself. Having a toy robot that turns into a toy vehicle is the gimmick. And that was the whole idea of the original Transformers. The only extra playability you get is the piece we took off the front, which forms this nice crossbow-style accessory. It's a little bit of an imaginative one, because there is some nice detailing to it, but nothing about it really screams gun or crossbow other than it's a giant fin that happens to have some kind of point on the front that you could pretend to be some kind of laser arrow bow pointer arrow. I don't know. I don't know. It's a crossbow. Let's just stick with a crossbow. But as you can see, it's such a good figure. Such a good figure. The homage is great. I love seeing a classic, like probably one of the most memorable GOBOT characters brought back in classic style, and it's an incredibly good mold with an incredibly clever homage to it. Like, all around, this is just like top-notch figure. Probably my favorite version of this mold. And again, it's an exceptional mold. I will keep speaking it up because it is absolutely true. Of all the classics, this does hold up the best. And we're about to replace that Mirage with something that combines onto Optimus for some reason, because Masquerade, I don't know. Someone get around to making a new Rodimus at some point, please? Classic needs an update. That'd be the one.